So, a couple of things that I want to touch on here are the positioning piece, and then you talked about streaming. But first, the positioning. You hear a lot of commercials on the radio that are poorly done.
Yep.
And as I talk to clients of mine about positioning, and that really is the keystone of your entire message, and making sure that, well, sure, I'm a tire company, and I have great tires and quality and price and service and all those things, but everybody can say that. But how do you craft that message and the importance of positioning in a radio spot?
Well, I think you really have to do is look at your competition and look where you are in that, and look at your policies and procedures, and really look at where you can stand out. And that takes some research on your part. I can't tell you what the best position for you to take is, but there are plenty of businesses who just go out there and say, come by me for the cheapest price. And I think that, you know, you can choose between a relational customer and a transactional customer. And transactional is the client that, you know, wants the cheapest price, and you're going to have a lot of competition in that area, versus the one that's relational and wants to come in and do business with you and talk about their friends. And so, and ultimately, that's the kind of person that you're going to make, you're going to have profitability with, and you're going to grow. And that's the kind of person that I believe radio can really reach on an emotional level, because it's very community oriented. So I would tell your client to, or anyone who's looking to do with radio, really look about who are you, what differentiates you, and what are your policies and procedures where somebody can feel like, wow, I got value from this transaction.
Right. And you talk about relational and transactional buyers. And the radio, if you do it the right way, and you create a message that's going to resonate with people and almost be visceral, you know, you're going to create that relational buyer who doesn't think about necessarily cost as the primary thing, or they're not going to go out and shop necessarily. You'll be on their brain, and they'll come to you, and they'll come to you again and again, and they'll refer you, versus that transactional person who's going to go to 7 different shops, and they're going to spend $80 to save 10.
Right.
You know, and so radio gives you a really incredible opportunity to create relational buyers.
Absolutely, because you get to tell your story. I mean, when I go talk to clients all the time, I ask them, what's your story? I'll go talk to a business owner. I'll go talk to you and say, what is your story? And every single time, I've never talked to a business owner who didn't tell me with an enthusiastic heart why they're in the business they're in. And your client wants to know why you are in the business that you're in. And that's where radio can really do a good job at conveying. So it's really, when it comes down to, in this digital age, you've got the internet. And so I encourage everyone to get on the internet, use Google, have good search engine optimization, and you want to be in there. But here's the differentiation. You can be in there and be listed with several other dentists, several other car shops, several other, you name it.
Right.
Or you can position yourself, have a great message, have a message that talks value to the customer, and then they're going to type your name into Google or your name into the URL. And that is ultimately what you want to do. You want to be the name, the top of the mind awareness, and the emotional link to whatever product or service that you're communicating to the clients.
Right. And so that's where I wanted to go with the internet. Part of my question was the synchronicity between radio and internet. And radio gives you that opportunity to create people who are looking for a product or a service, who, rather than going into Google and typing in tires in Clackamas, Oregon, they're going to go in and they're going to type in Joe's Tire World.
Yeah.
Which, bam, you're going to show up right #1 for that search. So that, in addition to some of the streaming things, why don't you talk about that?
Well, streaming in radio stations, I mean, radio stations obviously play over the air, but They also stream in the digital age, where you can pull it up on your computer and listen to it. And streaming tends to have a longer time listening, so the person that's pulling up the stream is listening to the radio station longer. The numbers aren't quite as vast. You're not getting 250,000 people listening at 1 minute, or even 50,000. Maybe you're getting 5,000 or more, depending on how many radio stations you're talking to. But the point is, you're getting this person who's working and who's connecting to this radio station, and in their mind, you become a part of their daily experience, a part of their daily community. So it's a really good entry point into radio marketing. But like anything, radio is network marketing. I mean, it's about creating relationships. So you just can't show up on radio, whether it's streaming or whether it's on air, and show up for a couple months and then leave.
What are the top 2 or 3 mistakes small businesses make when they decide to go into radio?
One mistake is that they really don't define how much they have to spend and how many people they really want to reach. And what do you really want to accomplish? So there's not enough idea of understanding what they can afford. I mean, and then going for that. So what does that mean? That means that, let's say I can afford to reach, and I'm going to pull out an arbitrary number, I can afford to reach 10,000 people. And I want to reach that exact 10,000 people every day. And that means, let's say I want to spend $1 a person. That means I'm going to spend $10,000 to reach those 10,000 people over and over and over again. Stick with that. Don't try to go and buy a whole radio station.
Be realistic.
Be realistic, right. The other thing is be clear about what your strategy and position is, and have a message. I always tell local business owners, don't try to get too fancy. Now, this doesn't work for everyone, but if you have a great message, you as the business owner should get on the air and talk about it, because you're the one that can talk about it from your heart. And that seems to do, really well for businesses. Now, sometimes it doesn't work, and if you have a marketing person like Drew working with you, you guys can discuss that and determine, maybe you should have a spot written for you and designed. But if the business owner gets on and speaks from their heart, it can really do wonders, because then people identify with you in your local community.
So we talked about gross numbers in terms of national listeners and market. Tell me about, what kind of numbers are we talking about for the Portland area?
Well, in the Portland area, radio reaches 92% of the listening audience. And radio listening is worth about
92%.
92%. And radio listening is worth about $80 billion. So the ears connected to radio are worth $80 billion in this marketplace. And when you talk about reaching...
And that's just Portland,
That's just the Portland metropolitan area. Okay. Multnomah County, Clackamas County, Yamhill County, Clark County, and Washington County. So those are some pretty big numbers. And, just to look at, every week, there's just during morning drive time, there is 1.5 million people listening to radio. So radio is very viable, and the numbers local here are very, very, very strong.
And that's 1.5 million people who can't TiVo you out.
Right. Thank you, Drew, for that.
Right. Last question. Bottom line. 100 words or less.
Oh, God.
Why radio?
Why radio? Well, as I said before, radio is the superpower of sound and story. Of all the other media out there, it's growing. It connects to people, thousands of people, one person at a time. And it's the best way for people to hear who you are and have an emotional connection to your business. There is no other medium out there that can do that and then drive that business to your internet or to your space on the internet, where you can tell your story further and you can close business or drive people to your store. So radio is very powerful in this day and age and can illuminate the word of mouth and inquiry better than any other medium out there.
Okay, so that's the story on radio. It does work. The medium is growing, and presents a huge opportunity for a small business, and it doesn't have to break your bank to get in if you do it the right way. And as Melissa said, you know, being real in your message, you're going to resonate with people. Now, to go back to the little exercise we did at the beginning where we showed you a photo and then we played an audio clip. Think about those two things. Remember that photo, and what did that pizza look like? Probably wasn't, it might have had entrails on it for all you know. Now think of that audio clip and think about what images went through your head in terms of the way it described pizza. And I think that exercise in and of itself is probably pretty powerful in terms of telling you the power of just an audio message that gets to the right people. So when you look at radio, be realistic about what you can accomplish, be realistic about your budget, and be real about who you are when you do go on the radio. So I want to thank Melissa Kunde from the Portland Area Radio Council and the Seattle Area Radio Association, and the folks at Bing Lounge for helping us with the video, and get on the air. Thanks. And if you want to find out more information, there's radiogurupdx.com and portlandarearadio.org.com. You can find out a whole bunch of information about radio there. Thanks, Melissa. Thank you.